I always thought I knew my wife, Sarah. We had built a life together, filled with shared dreams, laughter, and the kind of intimacy that comes from long nights spent talking about everything and nothing. When I picture our life, I see a cozy home, the scent of her favorite candles wafting through the air, and the warmth of her smile greeting me at the end of each day. But on that fateful Saturday, everything changed in an instant. It was a clear spring morning, the kind that makes you feel alive. I had decided to take a walk in the park nearby, a place we often strolled together. I had just finished a long week at work and was looking forward to a quiet weekend with Sarah. As I made my way down the familiar path, I noticed a group of dog walkers congregating near the entrance. One of them caught my eye, a tall, athletic man with an easy grin that seemed to charm everyone around him. I didn't think much of it at first. Dog walkers were a dime a dozen in our neighborhood. But then I saw her. Sarah was standing there, laughing, her head thrown back. In that way I loved so much. The sight of her filled me with warmth, but that warmth quickly turned to ice as I noticed the way she leaned in closer to the dog walker, their bodies almost touching. My heart dropped into my stomach as I felt an inexplicable sense of dread wash over me. I could see the connection between them, the chemistry that was so palpable it was suffocating. I hesitated, my feet rooted to the ground as I watched the scene unfold. My mind raced with questions, each more painful than the last. What was happening? Had I been blind to this? My heart pounded in my chest as I took a step closer, my breath quickening. I could hear snippets of their conversation, the playful banter that felt so foreign to me. A part of me wanted to turn and walk away, to pretend I hadn't seen anything, but I couldn't. I was compelled to confront this nightmare head-on. I approached them, my heart racing as I called out her name. Sarah. The sound of my voice seemed to cut through the air like a knife, freezing the moment. She turned to me, her face shifting from joy to confusion, and then to something akin to guilt as she realized she had been caught. The dog walker looked at me, eyes wide, and I could see the realization dawn on him as well. I felt a surge of anger, a hot wave that threatened to consume me. "Hey babe, I didn't think you'd be here," Sarah said, her voice faltering as she struggled to maintain her composure. "Clearly," I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "What's going on here?" The dog walker shifted uncomfortably and I could sense the tension in the air. Sarah opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, trying to concoct an explanation that would somehow make this all right. But deep down, I knew, I felt it in my bones. The laughter, the closeness, it was all too intimate for mere friendship. "Are you serious?" I spat, the betrayal flooding through me like poison. "You're cheating on me with a dog walker." Her expression shifted, and for a moment I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes. "It's not what you think." She stammered, but I couldn't bear to hear her excuses. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces, and with it, everything I thought I knew about our marriage. The dog walker tried to step in, but I shot him a glare that could have melted steel. I didn't want to hear his side of the story. I didn't want to hear anything that would justify this betrayal. I turned to Sarah, my voice low and dangerous. "We need to talk." As I walked away from the park, I felt like I was in a daze. The laughter, the warmth, the love I had felt just moments ago had evaporated. I was left with a hollow ache in my chest, a swirling mix of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. How could she do this to me? How could she throw away everything we had built together for a fling with a dog walker? I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning of a long, dark journey. A journey that would lead me down a path of revenge, one that I would meticulously plan and execute. I was determined to make her feel the consequences of her actions, and in that moment I began to plot my course. The drive home was a blur. I felt like I was in a movie, watching my life unfold from the outside. I couldn't shake the image of Sarah and that dog walker laughing together, the way she had leaned into him, her eyes sparkling with a joy that I hadn't seen in a long time. It was as if I had been living in a lie, and the truth had shattered the fragile facade of our marriage. As I entered our home, the silence was deafening. The familiar scent of her lavender candles filled the air, but instead of bringing me comfort, it twisted the knife deeper into my heart. I could hear the clock ticking in the background, each tick a reminder that time was moving forward while my world had just come crashing down. I felt like a ghost in my own house, wandering through rooms that felt foreign and cold. I sank onto the couch, my mind racing. Questions spiraled like a whirlwind. How long had this been going on? Was I that oblivious? Had every moment of intimacy we shared been a lie? I ran, my fingers through my hair, trying to calm the storm inside me. I thought of all the times I had trusted her, the moments we had shared that now felt tainted. The vacations, the late-night talks, the dreams we had built together, they all felt like cruel jokes. I picked up my phone, my fingers hovering over Sarah's contact. I wanted to call her, to confront her, to demand answers. But what would I say? There were no words that could capture the betrayal I felt. Instead, I put the phone down, letting out a long, shaky breath. I needed to process this, to find a way to cope with the emotional fallout that was overwhelming me. I thought about my friends, the ones who had always told me how lucky I was to have Sarah. They wouldn't understand. How could they? They saw the perfect couple, the couple who seemed to have it all. But behind closed doors, I had felt the distance growing, the cracks forming in our relationship. I had tried to ignore it, hoping it was just a rough patch. Now I realized that it had been much more than that. The anger bubbled beneath the surface. Hot, seething rage that I struggled to contain. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to make her feel the pain she had inflicted on me. But I also felt a deep sense of sadness, a loss that was almost too much to bear. I had loved her fiercely, and now it felt like that love had been weaponized against me. I was a fool, a jester in a tragic play, and I had been played for a fool. As the hours passed, I found myself packing the living room. I couldn't sit still. My mind was racing with thoughts of revenge. I had never been a vengeful person, but the idea of letting her get away with this betrayal ignited something primal within me. I wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions, to understand the depth of the pain she had caused. I thought about how I could make her regret her choices. I could confront her, scream and cry, but that wouldn't be enough. I needed something more, something that would leave a mark. I remembered the dog Walker, the smug look on his face as he flirted with Sarah. He was part of this betrayal, and he needed to be included in my plans. I reached out to my best friend Jake, who had always been my sounding board. I needed someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't judge me for feeling betrayed and angry. When he answered, I could hear the concern in his voice. "Hey man, what's going on? You sound off." I took a deep breath, ready to spill my heart out. "It's Sarah. She's cheating on me, with a dog Walker." The words felt heavy as they left my mouth, and I could hear the silence on the other end of the line. "Dude, are you serious? What the hell?" "I'm so sorry," Jake replied, his voice filled with disbelief. "What are you going to do?" That's when the idea started to form in my mind. "I don't know yet, but I want her to feel the pain she's caused. I need her to understand what she's done." Jake hesitated. "Just be careful, man. You don't want to do something you'll regret." But I was already deep in thought, my emotions swirling into a dark vortex of betrayal and revenge. I didn't want to regret anything. I wanted to take control of my life again. I wanted to show Sarah that her actions had consequences, and that I wouldn't be the one left in the doghouse. The more I thought about it, the more determined I became. I needed a plan, a way to execute my revenge that would leave her shaken. I didn't want to hurt her physically, but I wanted her to feel the emotional impact of what she had done. I wanted her to understand that I was not just a passive victim in this situation. As I hung up the phone, a sense of clarity washed over me. I had been wronged, but I would not let this define me. I would rise from the ashes of this betrayal, and I would make sure that Sarah would never forget the pain she caused. The wheels were in motion, and I was ready to take action. The night dragged on, and I found myself lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each one more insidious than the last. I could feel the anger pulsing through my veins, fueling my need for revenge. I needed a plan, something that would not only make Sarah feel the weight of her actions, but also strip away the comfort she had taken for granted in our marriage. I got up and moved to the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of whiskey. The amber liquid glistened in the low light, a stark contrast to the dark thoughts swirling in my mind. With each sip, I felt a sense of clarity. I began to plot, to strategize. I needed to know everything I could about this dog Walker, his name, where he lived, what he did. The more information I had, the better I could execute my plan. I grabbed my laptop and began my research. After a few minutes of digging through social media, I found him. Mark, a 30-something dog walker with an Instagram full of pictures showcasing his adventures with the dogs he cared for. I scrolled through the photos, my anger reigniting as I saw him smiling with various dogs, but my heart sank when I stumbled upon pictures of him and Sarah. They were innocently posed, but the intimacy in their smiles and the way they looked at each other made my stomach churn. I clicked on his profile and found his contact information. I hesitated for a moment, contemplating my next move. I wanted to confront him, to make him feel the consequences of his actions, but I also wanted to make sure that Sarah knew that I was not going to let this slide. I wanted her to see that I was taking control, that I wouldn't be the one left in the doghouse. The next day, I decided to confront Sarah. I wanted to catch her off guard, to see the look on her face when I revealed that I knew everything. I spent the morning preparing myself mentally, rehearsing the words I would say. I wanted to be calm but assertive, to show her that I was not going to be a victim in this situation. When she came home from work, I greeted her with a smile that felt like a mask. "Hey, how was your day?" I asked, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. She returned my smile, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath my calm exterior. "It was good, just the usual. How about you?" she replied, her eyes sparkling with that same joy I had seen. In the park, it made my stomach twist. "I've been thinking," I said, my voice steady, "about us, about everything." Her expression shifted, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "I saw you with Mark at the park the other day." Her eyes widened, and for a moment I saw the panic flicker across her face. "I can explain." "Save it," I interrupted, cutting her off. "You don't need to explain anything. I know what's been going on." The color drained from her face, and I felt a surge of satisfaction. I had her right where I wanted her. "You think I wouldn't notice? You think I would just sit back and let you cheat on me?" "I didn't mean for it to happen," she stammered, her voice shaky. "It was just a moment of weakness." "A moment of weakness?" I echoed, incredulous. "You think that's an excuse? You've shattered everything we built together." I watched as she struggled to find the right words, her eyes darting around the room. "I'm sorry, I truly am. I love you." "Love?" I sneered. "You don't get to talk about love after what you've done. You need to understand that your actions have consequences." As I said this, I felt a surge of power. I had taken the first step towards my revenge, and I could see the fear in her eyes. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I had a plan, and I was ready to execute it. That night, I reached out to Mark. I crafted a message that was both direct and threatening. I wanted him to know that I was aware of his affair with my wife and that I wouldn't tolerate it. I told him that I knew where he lived and that I would not hesitate to make his life difficult if he didn't end things with Sarah immediately. It felt good to take that step, to assert my dominance in a situation that had made me feel powerless. As I pressed send, I felt a rush of adrenaline. I was no longer the victim. I was the one in control. I imagined the look on Sarah's face when she discovered that I had reached out to him. She would realize that I was not just going to sit back and let her betrayal slide. The next day, I confronted her again. This time, I had a new sense of purpose. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand the depth of the betrayal. I told her that I had reached out to Mark and that I had made it clear that he needed to stay away from her. Her face paled, and I reveled in the fear that crossed her features. "You can't do that. You don't understand," she pleaded, her voice rising in panic. "Oh, I understand perfectly," I replied coldly. "You wanted to play with fire, and now you'll have to deal with the consequences. I'm not going to let this go without a fight." With each word, I felt a sense of liberation. I was no longer the man who had been blindsided by betrayal. I was a man with a plan, and I was ready to see it through. I would ensure that Sarah would remember this lesson for the rest of her life. The stage was set, and I was ready to execute my revenge. As the days passed, I could feel the tension in the house. Sarah was on edge, and every time I caught her looking at her phone, an unsettling sense of satisfaction coursed through me. I was in control now, and I could see that she was beginning to realize the consequences of her actions. My plan was set in motion, and I was ready to execute it with precision. I knew I needed to up the stakes and make my presence felt in this situation. One afternoon, I decided to pay a visit to Mark, the dog walker. I had gathered enough information about him to know where he lived and worked. The thought of confronting him face to face made my heart race, but I was determined to follow through. I wanted him to know that I was not just another husband he could toy with. I drove to his neighborhood, a quaint area filled with tree-lined streets and charming houses. My palms were sweaty on the steering wheel as I parked outside his place. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, reminding myself of the reasons behind my actions. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my dignity and showing Sarah that I wouldn't be walked over. I approached his front door, my heart pounding in my chest. I knocked firmly, and after a moment I heard footsteps approaching. The door swung open, and there he stood, Mark, looking relaxed and casual as if he had no idea the storm that was about to hit him. "Can I help you?" he asked, a hint of confusion in his voice. I stepped forward, my voice low and steady. "Yeah, we need to talk." His expression shifted as he realized who I was. "Oh, you're Sarah's husband." "Exactly," I replied, my tone sharp. "I've heard about you. You think it's okay to invade my home and my marriage." He opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off. "I'm not interested in your excuses. I'm here to make it clear that this affair needs to stop. You're playing with fire, and I won't let you burn my house down." Mark shifted uncomfortably, glancing around as if looking for an escape route. "Look, I didn't mean for things to get out of hand. It was just a fling." "Just a fling?" I echoed, anger bubbling up inside me. "You think this is just a game? You're messing with people's lives here. You need to stay away from Sarah, or I will make your life a nightmare." His eyes widened, and for a moment I could see the realization dawning on him. I leaned in closer, lowering my voice to a whisper. "Trust me, you don't want to cross me." I turned to leave, but not before adding, "If I see you with her again, I'll make sure you regret it." I walked back to my car, feeling a surge of adrenaline. I had taken control of the situation, and it felt empowering. When I returned home, I found Sarah sitting on the couch, her phone in hand. She looked up, her expression a mix of concern and confusion. "Where were you?" "Just running some errands," I replied, suppressing a smirk. I watched as she processed my words, her mind racing with possibilities. I could see the wheels turning as she contemplated what I had done. "Did you talk to Mark?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, I did," I said casually, watching her reaction. The color drained from her face, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. "He understands that this needs to end." "Why would you do that?" she asked, her voice rising in panic. "You're making things worse." "Worse? No, I'm making things right," I shot back, my anger flaring. "You think I'm just going to sit back and let you betray me? You need to understand that your actions have consequences." She opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off again. "You need to think about what you want, Sarah. If you want to keep this marriage, you need to cut him out of your life for good. If you don't, I can promise you this won't end well for you." The tension in the room was palpable, and I could see the fear in her eyes. I was no longer the passive husband she could manipulate. I was a man with a mission, and I would not back down. Over the next few days, I watched as Sarah struggled to navigate the fallout from my confrontation with Mark. She tried to call him, but I had made sure he wouldn't pick up. I had sent him a final message, warning him that if he reached out to her again, I would take it further. I wanted him to feel the weight of his actions, and I wanted her to see that I was serious about protecting what was mine. I noticed the change in Sarah. She was more subdued, more cautious around me. The laughter that once filled our home was replaced by an uneasy silence. I had taken the reins, and while I felt a sense of power, I also couldn't shake the feeling that I was pushing her further away. One evening, as we sat in silence, I decided to confront her again. "How do you feel about all this?" I asked, my voice steady. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of anger and regret. "I feel trapped, like I can't breathe. You're punishing me for what happened, and I don't know how to fix this." "Fix it?" I scoffed. "You had your chance to fix it when you decided to betray me. This isn't just about punishment. It's about me reclaiming my dignity." The tension between us was thick, and I could feel the weight of my actions settling in. I was executing my plan, but at what cost? I wanted her to understand the consequences of her betrayal, but I also feared that I was losing her in the process. As I lay in bed that night, I realized that revenge, while satisfying, was also a double-edged sword. I was getting what I wanted, but I was also pushing her further away from me. I needed to consider my next move carefully. I didn't want to lose the woman I had once loved fiercely. The days turned into weeks, and the atmosphere in our home was suffocating. The initial thrill of taking control began to fade, replaced by a nagging sense of regret. I had executed my plan with precision, but the cost was becoming painfully evident. Sarah was a shell of the woman I had once loved, her laughter replaced by a constant tension that hung in the air like a storm cloud. I found myself reflecting on our relationship, sifting through the memories of our happier times. I remembered the evenings spent cooking together, the spontaneous road trips, and the late-night talks that had once felt so intimate. Now, those memories felt tainted, overshadowed by betrayal and revenge. I was left grappling with the realization that my actions had not only affected her but had also chipped away at the foundation of our marriage. One night, as I sat alone in the living room, the silence was deafening. I could hear the clock ticking, each tick a reminder of the time slipping away. I picked up my phone and scrolled through our photos, searching for a glimpse of the love we had shared. There were countless pictures of us smiling, celebrating anniversaries, and enjoying life together. But now, they felt like artifacts from a different life, a reminder of what I had lost and what I was in danger of losing forever. I decided it was time to confront my feelings. I had been so focused on revenge that I hadn't considered the broader implications of my actions. I needed to talk to Sarah to see if there was any way to salvage what was left of our relationship. I was tired of the tension, tired of the games we were playing. I wanted honesty, even if it meant facing the truth of our situation head-on. When I approached her that evening, I could see the apprehension in her eyes. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but gentle. "About what?" she asked, crossing her arms defensively. "About us. About everything that's happened," I replied, taking a deep breath. "I've realized that my actions haven't just hurt you, they've hurt us. I don't want to live like this anymore." She looked at me, her expression softening slightly. "I don't either. But what do you want from me?" "I want us to be honest with each other. I want to understand why you cheated, what led you to that moment," I said, my heart racing. "I need to know if there's a way to move forward." Sarah hesitated, her eyes welling with tears. "I don't even know how to explain it. It was a moment of weakness, a stupid mistake. I was unhappy, and I didn't know how to talk to you about it. I thought I could find solace somewhere else, but it only made things worse." Her words struck a chord within me. I had sensed the distance growing between us, but I had been so focused on my own pain that I hadn't taken the time to understand her struggles. "I wish you had come to me instead of seeking comfort in someone else. We could have worked through it together." "I know," she said, her voice trembling. "I was scared. I thought I could handle it on my own, but I was wrong." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our conversation hanging in the air. I could feel the tension beginning to lift, replaced by a sense of mutual vulnerability. "I'm not proud of what I did either," I admitted. "My desire for revenge blinded me to the fact that we both needed to heal. I thought that punishing you would make me feel better, but it hasn't. It's only made things worse." Sarah looked at me, her expression a mixture of relief and sorrow. "I want to fix this too. I don't want to lose you." The sincerity in her voice stirred something deep within me. I realized that while revenge had felt empowering at first, it had ultimately left me feeling empty. I did want to be a man defined by anger and bitterness. I wanted to be someone capable of forgiveness and growth. As we talked late into the night, we began to lay the groundwork for rebuilding our relationship. We discussed our feelings, our fears, and what we needed from each other moving forward. It was raw and painful, but it was also liberating. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of hope. In the following days, we worked hard to repair the damage. We sought counseling, opened up about our emotions, and made a conscious effort to communicate. It was a long and arduous process, but I could see the cracks in our relationship beginning to mend. We were learning to trust each other again, to be vulnerable, and to confront the issues that had led us down this dark path. I still grappled with the memories of betrayal, but I was determined not to let them define us. I had learned that revenge might provide a fleeting sense of satisfaction, but it could also lead to destruction. Instead, I chose the path of healing, both for myself and for Sarah. As I lay in bed one night, I reflected on the journey we had taken. It had been a tumultuous ride, filled with heartache and anger, but it had also opened my eyes to the importance of communication and understanding. I realized that love was not just about the good times. It was also about facing the challenges head-on and emerging stronger together. The road ahead would not be easy, but I was willing to fight for our marriage. I had learned valuable lessons about trust, betrayal, and the power of forgiveness. And while the scars of our past would remain, I hoped they would serve as reminders of how far we had come and how much we had to lose. As I sat in the quiet of our living room, the soft glow of the evening sun filtering through the curtains, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this moment. The chaos of betrayal and revenge felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the work we had put into rebuilding our relationship. It was a path filled with pain, but also with profound growth and understanding. Sarah and I had learned to communicate openly, to share our feelings without fear of judgment. It wasn't easy. There were days when the shadows of doubt crept back in, and we found ourselves grappling with the past. But we fought through those moments together, reminding each other of the commitment we had made to heal. Each small victory, every heartfelt conversation, brought us closer, reinforcing the bond we had almost lost. One evening, we decided to revisit the park where I had first discovered her betrayal. It felt symbolic, a way to acknowledge the pain while also celebrating our journey of healing. As we walked hand in hand, I could see the familiar warmth in her smile, the light in her eyes that had been dimmed for so long. It was a reminder that love could endure, even through the darkest of times. "Do you remember that day?" she asked, her voice soft as we strolled along the path. I nodded, the memories flooding back. "Yeah, I remember feeling like my world had fallen apart. I thought I'd never be able to trust you again." "I can't express how sorry I am for what I did," she replied, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I never wanted to hurt you. I was lost and didn't know how to reach out for help." "I know," I said, squeezing her hand gently. "But we're both learning, right? It's been a painful process, but I believe we're stronger now." We continued walking, the air filled with the sounds of laughter from children playing nearby and the distant barking of dogs. It struck me how life continued around us, how people moved forward despite their struggles. I realized that our journey was just one of many, a testament to the resilience of love and the power of forgiveness. As we sat on a bench, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I took a deep breath and felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had entered this journey seeking revenge, but I had emerged with something far more valuable, a renewed understanding of love and commitment. I had learned that love was not just about the good times, it was also about facing the storms together and coming out on the other side. "Going through this has taught me so much," I admitted, turning to her. "I've learned that revenge might give a momentary sense of power, but it doesn't heal the wounds. I don't want to be that person anymore." Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "Neither do I. I want us to move forward, to build a future together that's stronger than our past." In that moment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. We were no longer defined by betrayal. We were two people committed to each other's growth and happiness. The scars from our past would remain, but they would serve as reminders of how far we had come and the lessons we had learned. As we stood up to leave, I took one last look at the park, a place that had once been a symbol of betrayal but now represented our journey of healing. I realized that love was a choice, one that required effort and commitment, especially in the face of adversity. We were choosing each other every day, and that was the most powerful decision we could make. Driving home that evening, I felt a sense of hope and renewal. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but I was ready to face them with Sarah by my side. We had weathered a storm together, and I knew that if we could survive that, we could survive anything. As I parked the car and turned to Sarah, I smiled, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "Thank you for fighting for us," I said sincerely. She smiled back, her eyes sparkling with determination. "Thank you for believing in us even when it was hard." And as we stepped into our home, I realized that while the past had shaped us, it wouldn't define our future. We were writing a new story together, one filled with love, forgiveness, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. In the end, I learned that love is not just about avoiding pain. It's about enduring it together and coming out stronger on the other side. It's about the choices we make, the lessons we learn, and the unwavering commitment to each other, no matter the circumstances. And that truly is what love is all about. This was my journey, a tale of betrayal, revenge, and ultimately redemption. I had been left in the doghouse, but I had clawed my way out, determined to reclaim my life and my love. And now I was ready to embrace whatever came next.